to another Mortgage Coach weekly coaching call. We're here to connect as a community of like-valued, like-minded mortgage professionals to learn the ideas, hear the stories that are working right now in the trenches, and to get focused on the week ahead. My goal is to make sure every single week we are delivering the industry's absolute best weekly sales meeting. My name is Dave Savage. I'm the CEO of Mortgage Coach. If anybody has not connected with me in LinkedIn or you have not connected with Mortgage Coach on Facebook, I urge you to do it. As members of our team, I'm going to make sure everybody has contact information and they know how to get in touch with me. I also want to just really ensure that you have liked the Mortgage Coach page. We're always putting new ideas, new contacts, new content. We're always announcing who's going to be on the coaching call. So pay attention. And again, if you have questions, go there and ask questions. Just about every week now, we're averaging some Mortgage Coach community loan officer actually asking for a referral to a loan officer in a specific state. So if you want to get some extra leads and some extra business, keep an eye on the Mortgage Coach page also. As our guest today, we have Mr. Rima. Rick, welcome to the call.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate it.
Good. I'm gonna pre-frame the call. I'm gonna go through some concepts and ideas, and then bring you back in, and we'll kick things off. In the meantime, Rick, if you do want to add anything to anything I have to say, consider yourself a co-host until I officially bring you back in.
All right. Thanks.
All right. So I touched on this in a previous coaching call, but I really want to remind you of some of these ideas. Some of you were not on that call. Some of you just need the reminder. And our belief here at Mortgage Coach is that everybody in this industry, regardless of what happens to interest rates for the remainder of the year, you can have a personal best. You can literally have your best year ever. You can have another record-breaking year. And many of you did break records from last year. Today is all about getting more purchase business while thriving within a culture of compliance. Now, I've been talking to a lot of CEOs. In fact, I had 2 face-to-face meetings with 2 of the nation's best mortgage companies last week, met with their compliance team, met with the CEOs. And this is something that every CEO in the mortgage industry is figuring out. How do we continue to thrive and strive in doing business, but execute on a culture of compliance? When I talk to loan officers, many loan officers kind of think that's the CEO's problem. That's corporate's issue. And I'm here to say, guys, it's not just their problem. It's your problem. If you don't execute right in this area, it will cost you. It will cost your organization. So every loan officer needs to really embrace this culture of compliance and make sure that you're doing your part. And I'm going to touch on that a little bit more in a minute. But let's first start with the whole Mortgage Coach purchase formula. And it starts with that Mortgage Coach experience. Again, for some of you that are hearing this for the second or third time, you watched my video, I'm not going to apologize. I'm just going to ask you, are you doing it? Are you making sure that every buyer has a total cost analysis? Are you making sure that every renter, that you're taking them through that rent versus own experience? Are you making sure that every home buyer has all the options in a TCA? Are you making sure that you know how to have that why buy now conversation and really drive that home to the client? So last week, Frank Blakely came in. If you did not hear last week's coaching call, I urge you to go listen to the recording. If you don't know how to get to the recording, I'll show you in a few minutes. But Frank really drilled down on how to create urgency for move-up home buyers. So, I mean, it was a fabulous strategy, fabulous idea. It was recorded. In addition to that, Jacob Gibbs from our team in our Thursday Q&A session had a whole recorded session around how to do this strategy. So if you're on this call and you do not know how to create urgency for move-up home buyers, we shared it last week. We recorded it. I'm not going to get into it in detail other than just to remind you this is a fabulous way of delivering value to realtors and a great way of helping clients understand the value, the financial value of moving up. We also have a number of other scenarios. So I just want to make sure everybody has this checklist and you've checked it off. On a scale of 1 to 10, you can execute all of these home buyer strategies at a level of 9 or better. And if you haven't, you're not maximizing the tools at your disposal. I also want to remind everybody from last week's coaching call, Jacob Gibbs rolled out and he showed what I consider to be a pretty innovative, because I hadn't seen it before, but a great way to organize your templates in Edge. So I highly recommend everybody on this call that you have things organized around purchase strategies, refi strategies, and success stories so that you can quickly and easily use the templates in Edge to create a why move up analysis, to create a cost avoiding analysis. If you already have that template created, you don't have to do any data input except for putting in the person's name. And you already have that scenario. You change the loan amounts, make sure the rates are updated, and boom, within a minute, you've created one of these scenarios. So if you do not know how to create one of these templates, Jacob did record that session. Go to the Mortgage Coach Community tab, click on Coaching Calls, and at the very top, there is Jacob's drill down on how to create your personal arsenal of templates. So quick, easy, simple. By the way, Rick, have you do you organize your templates in this way? I'm just curious.
I do not. I just, every time I do one, I do it for that customer, but I've done it so much it doesn't take any time at all.
Okay. Well, you might want to see how the templates are being used. It might save you, just a minute or two, but something to think about and consider.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other key component to the purchase formula is that mobile app strategy. Make sure that you're BCCing your realtors. Make sure that you're making sure that your clients have the app downloaded. If they click on the link from the mobile experience, it'll take them to the App Store. They'll download it. But that is the richest, the most valuable way to present a mortgage coach strategy. So you want to be as intentional as you can in driving that experience. Remember, everybody, Edge Live works on a mobile, so even if they open it up in their iPad and you're walking them through a scenario, you're driving that mobile experience. I just want to remind everybody of that feature, that capability, make sure everybody's executing around it, because mobile is here. 77% of people watching TV now are also doing it on another device. They've got their iPhone, they've got their iPads. 67% of people that are purchasing online, they're not just doing it with their desktop, their laptop. It's a multi-screen environment. So that applies to the mortgage experience. People want to get the content and information where they're at right now in a spontaneous situation. So the more you can deliver on that, the better. Again, I just want to remind everybody again how important it is as mortgage coach loan officers that we understand compliance, we understand how we need to execute, and I want to reemphasize how much we help. I mean, two of the most valuable ways that we help you is by delivering a mortgage coach experience with each and every borrower. It reduces disparate treatment because you're improving the consistency of your execution. And trust me when I say this, the CFPB is out there doing secret shoppers. They are out there shopping you. And if you're not delivering something in a consistent way, it's not going to be good for you. It's not going to be good for your corporation. And also, it's important that if you're doing a TCA with each and every client, it's your best defense. If a borrower ever comes back and says, oh, that's not what you told me, well, you know what? Edge tracks what you told them. Edge tracks what you showed them. And we've even made it easy to get to that information. So it's your best defense and it's your best offense. So make sure you're using it with each and every client. Also want to remind everybody, I posted a link to a video in Facebook last week kind of highlighting everything I just went through. I got into a little bit more detail. It's 15 minutes. If you haven't seen it, check it out. So one quick survey before we bring Rick into the conversation is I just want to get a feel for how much value you're getting from Mortgage Coach. So real quick, how many loans per month is Mortgage Coach helping you drive? We want to have a better understanding of the value that we're bringing to the table for everybody. So quickly, again, everybody knows I need to get 70% of you out there voting. What percentage of loans, or how many loans, are we helping you drive on a monthly basis? By the way, Rick, before I close the survey, what's your answer in terms of how we're helping you?
Mine would be 4+.
Okay. And what, again, I don't want to steal any thunder from the interview that we're going to do. What kind of strategy are you implementing that's delivering that 4+ loans?
I'm actually using quite a few, but the number one strategy I use is an annual or semi-annual review of a current customer's mortgage. And
fantastic. So go ahead, Rick. I didn't mean to cut you off.
And that brings in, I mean, whether it gives me that customer to do their loan again, or I may get referrals, and usually will get, enough referrals off of, if you do 10 of them, I'll probably get 5 or 6 referrals off those 10 Edge reports that I send.
Fantastic. So there's takeaway number 1 for everybody on the call. Make sure you're doing annual reviews with your clients. So everybody, we're at 50% of you have voted. I need to get to 70%. Let's get into the interview. Anybody who's holding out and has not voted, give me a quick vote so that we can move on with the call. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and post the results. So the good news is 80% of you are getting at least 1 loan. My guess is that anybody that's not, you're not using it. You're not delivering that Edge experience to every client. Rick, any surprises with the survey results?
I actually, you broke up a little bit, Dave. I couldn't hear you.
I kind of summarized the results, and that 80% of the folks on the call are getting at least 1, and I'm posting the results. Any surprises from your perspective on the results?
Yeah, I'm surprised that, well, it depends on how much they're using it, but I'm kind of surprised there isn't more of the 4+. I would have thought if you use it, that's where it would be.
Yeah, I'm with you, and again, that's one of the goals of these calls, is to remind you guys to use it more, to make sure that each and every client are getting this mortgage coach report. So let's roll, man. Let's bring Rick into the conversation. Rick, this is the 2nd or 3rd time I've brought you into these calls. Everybody on this call, if you did not get an email announcing that Rick was going to be on this call yesterday, that means your email is getting blocked in our spam filters. So if you want to make sure that you're getting mortgage coach messages, you did not get an email like this, make sure you go in and approve us in your spam filter, make sure that you like our contact, or you had a contact. So Rick, as a result of the last time you were in a mortgage coach call, it was so, and again, I don't want to create too big of expectations, but you were so, it was just so valuable, such common sense wisdom that I asked you, and Todd Duncan agreed. We brought you to Sales Mastery, and you delivered just fantastic value at Sales Mastery last year. So I want to thank you for that, and I also want to set the bar that you got to blow that one away.
You're still breaking up.
Oh man, I don't know. When you start talking here, I'll troubleshoot and see if I can figure out why I'm breaking up. So Rick, this is a picture of you sitting at your desk. If you could just kind of describe everybody, your work environment, what percentage of the time you're in your office, at your desk versus meeting with clients. Just give everybody a feel for, your mortgage practice and your typical workday.
Okay, you broke up, so I hope I'm answering the question that you gave me. The way I've set up my business is I do everything by phone. I'm the salesperson in my little team. So everything comes to me on the first call or repeat customer calls. I send out all of the Edge reports and any other marketing that is done. It all comes in to me. I have 2 people who work for me who I call my loan origination manager and my loan production manager. They take all of my applications, and then they follow the loans through the process. So they meet with the customer. My preference is that I talk to the customer. Once they're ready to move forward with a mortgage, then I set a time for them to meet with one of my staff. They take the application over the phone, and then they schedule a time, hopefully, for them to come in, or we do it electronically, and we get everything taken care of that way. And I send on this. I would say I'm not 100% on sending out an Edge report, but I'm probably about 93% of everybody I work with. I send out an Edge report so they can see what I'm talking about. I just find it helps them really get an understanding. And about 50 to 55%, I get comments back where the Edge report really just blew them away. They were very, very impressed with, especially the video. That's something I picked up at Mastery, and I started to use in October, November, and that's really been really helpful and really makes people really understand what you're saying and then get a connection to you. And I find my closing ratio has gone up because of doing the video.
Well, any guess on, one, what your conversion rate is today and how much has gone up just by adding the video?
That, I hate to admit it, I'm not one who tracks those things, so I'm going to have to guess somewhat. I would guess that my normal ratio, it depends on how you look at it, but I would say if you throw in everything, those who really can't finance, or when I talk to them, they can't move forward, I probably close about 75% of everybody I talk to. And it was probably down around 63 to 64% before I started using the video, and maybe even higher than 75% right now. I've noticed a huge change in the customers' conversation with me after they've seen the video with the Edge presentation.
Fantastic. And give everybody just some perspective as to how many loans you're doing per month and per year so they can get a feel for the amount of activity going on in your world.
Okay. Last year I closed 694 loans. This year through April I've closed 224 loans. I've averaged about just over 50 loans per month for the last 4 or 5, 6 years. So it's really what slows me down is there's only so much you can do, and I don't work 80 hours a week. I work about 40 to 42 hours a week. I don't work weekends very often. I don't, I try to keep it to near that 40 hours a week.
Fantastic. So I mean that's a lot of folks. If you're at a 75% conversion rate, closing 50 loans, that means you're having 75, 80 borrower conversations with Edge. You're earning their trust and value, and then you're pushing that into your transaction coordinator and into your team to process and fund the loans. Is that right?
That's correct. And I do it that way because I feel I'm the best person to convince the customer to move forward. And I believe you have to get back with people. If I get back first, I have a better chance of getting that customer and them not going with another lender.
Okay, fantastic. And a really quick, describe your team. How many transaction coordinators, how many assistants? Give us all a feel for the team that backs up this type of success.
Well, I have the two assistants, which I call loan origination manager, loan production manager, and then we have a processing staff which processes all the loans, but they process mine along with everybody else's here. And then I also have a team of LOs. Now that's not in the production I gave you. I have like 6 LOs right now who work for me, and I think year to date they've produced about 280 loans through the 6 of them, and so that's how I set up. But really it's just me and two assistants who take all my applications and watch my loans go through the process.
Very efficient. So folks, to benchmark that for yourselves, we've always shared that kind of the best practice is per transaction coordinator, 20 loans. And it sounds like Rick is doing more like 30 per. So a very efficient organization, very successful, earning a lot of trust, a lot of respect with a lot of folks. So Rick, one of the things I'm doing right now is I've got a project called Wow Selling that I've talked to everybody about. It's really been, it's the passion and the vision that started Mortgage Coach 15 years ago. And it was just the whole concept that through art and science, the best salespeople win by wowing people, by surpassing their expectations. And I'm currently in the process of doing interviews where really understanding how top salespeople are winning by wowing. And one of the things I love about this method is that it's so simple. I mean, there's so many different books on selling. There's so many different strategies, methods, best practices. But wow selling is so simple. It's just if you surpass someone's expectations in a positive way, you earn trust, you earn respect, and they do business with you. So with that said, Rick, how important is wowing to your success? When you think of all the components, all the methods, all the strategies, how important is the wow component?
I would say it's critical, and I haven't thought of it the way you've put it down, but I think that one of the things that I do is I sell what I do is I give very, very low closing costs. I don't give zero closing costs, but I give very low closing costs. What I've tried to do is set myself apart, and for us, the wow is, and the advertising is, the low closing costs. And then, because everybody else in my market, and everybody's going to have to look at their market and see how people in your market do it. But most people that I've run into, most of my competition sells rates. I don't sell rates. I sell closing costs. And so everything I do is wowing them with the closing costs, along with everything else that I do. Edge is a prime example. There's tools out there to really wow customers, and Edge is one of those things. I use a very, very sophisticated and detailed follow-up system. I do a lot of videos, so my follow-up a lot of times has a video email where just trying to set myself apart and do that wowing where it's little tiny little differences, but it puts you ahead of everybody else because you've set yourself there by the customer just being blown away by what you've provided to them.
Perfect. So for what I heard, it's very much core to your success. And when you think of all the different things that make you successful, it's having systems, it's having tools, and it's the way you execute that consistently surpasses expectations.
That is correct. I think it's critical to be able to do that.
Okay. So I think you answered this to some extent, but I think I might be able to pull a little more out of you. What are some of the ways that you're winning by wowing? So let's just almost take a checklist of things that you do, tools that you use, methods that you have that actually create that wow. Let's just kind of break it down to the best of our ability right now.
Okay. Well, the first thing I think is one of the critical tools is the Edge presentation and the video with that Edge presentation. Since the vast majority of the people I talk to will end up with that Edge presentation, to me that's a critical piece. Along with that, I have, like I said, I have the follow-up system. So my belief is that I have to touch the person about 30 times a year. And I don't have time to call my entire database every year. So I do all of my touching by email. And it's one of the things where I think the video email has really helped because it's more of a personal touch to the email, and they feel like they're really having a conversation with me. And so that's another thing that I do. Maybe before I even say all that I'm going to say, I don't do anything special. I do those things that most everybody on this call probably knows they should do. They just don't do them. And I do them. Okay, and that's kind of, that to me, that's, and I'm basing that on the people I work with. They all sit here and watch the things that I do, and then they don't execute what I do. They'll execute one piece or two pieces, execute the entire puzzle of pieces, and it never works as well unless you execute everything. But you have to start with one, and I would start with Edge. So I do the Edge, I do the videos to my customers. I have a video website where a lot of my customers will send their referrals to see my videos. That's all about becoming the expert. I've done this a long time, so in my mind, I'm an expert. In other people's mind, I may not be, but in my mind, I'm an expert. And when I'm talking to people and I'm explaining things, I believe I do it better than most anybody else. So I believe when I'm talking to a customer and I'm explaining and I'm trying to show them what's best and how I can help them, I believe I do that better than the vast majority of people. I may be wrong, but that doesn't matter. I believe I am. And so for me, that's another critical piece, is being that expert, that trusted advisor for the customer. And you're getting there, and I'm sure everybody's had this, is when people call you up and they want your advice. Even new people, they're referrals, and they aren't even asking, they aren't even shopping. They just want your advice on what to do. and which program to go to. So being an expert in what you're doing and giving honest and accurate advice, I think, is another piece that it goes into the wowing, because you're what you tell them, and then you execute and you do what you tell them, and even sometimes above, and many times above what they tell them, what you tell them, you're going to see, that's where you start to get your referrals. And in my opinion, referrals is where the business is at, repeat and referral business. Now that's how I do it. I don't work with real estate agents. I don't really work with anything but direct with my customer, and I get referrals based on that base of customers. So did I answer your question, Dave, or do you need more information?
Whoa. Well, first of all, there was so much wisdom, so much truth in what you said. Everybody who's listening to this call, if you want to take it to another level, if you want to improve your results, I just recommend that you re-listen to that segment that Rick just did and ask yourself, where do you stack up? Again, I so love the concept of, it's pretty simple. I just do what I know I'm supposed to do. And you're right, there's so many people, even when it comes to executing the Mortgage Coach Edge report every single time with every single client, they know they should do it. They know it's the right thing to do, but yet they don't do it every single time. So obviously you're all on this call, you're all Mortgage Coach members. I hope you pulled from that. That was huge. Rick, I've got a number of questions that have come in that are asking you, how do you follow up with people? I don't know whether it's a CRM that you have, whether it's how you manage your time, but how do you make sure that you don't miss commitments, and how do you follow up with people? I think that would be helpful, and I got a number of questions in that area.
Okay, well, first, I'm very organized, but I do use a CRM, and everything goes into my CRM. But I'll give you how my day tends to go. When I get here, I'll take all of the phone calls that I've gotten. If I haven't got if I got any over the evening and night, every call that comes in goes onto, it's just a 8.5 by 11 line paper, but it goes in order, and I write down the basic notes. Then when I'm calling, before I call the customer back, if it's a new customer that's looking to purchase or refinance, I put them on what I call a call-in sheet that I drew up. And I go through everything on that call-in sheet with the customer. I get all their information, make sure I go through the different options, and any follow-up that I have to do, I write down on that call-in sheet. And then I will transfer it over into my CRM if I need to. And then, I have different places. I'm a stacker, so I have different places I place it. If I have to do something with it, it goes in one place. Get everything done as quickly as humanly possible. So if I talk to a customer and they need me to send the notes from what we talked about, when I say send the notes, I'm going to put an edge report together. I tell them, if I talk to them this morning, you'll have it by this evening. If you don't have it, please let me know. Well, within 2 hours, they have that report. I'm going to get it put together if it's at all possible, and I'm going to send them the report with the video. And because to me, you have to get back. I don't leave things. I never leave things. I have every call that comes in during the day answered by the time I leave that evening. I don't leave any calls undone. It may just be a message that I left. I may not actually talk to them, but every single person is going to get called back that day. And then all of that, if they don't call back, then they're going to get followed up again, depending on what time frame I think I need to do that in. If I try a customer enough and they don't get back with me, I believe you have to cut and run. If you think it's not going to work, they won't get back with you, I move on. But I have enough leads coming that I can afford to do that. Some people may not. But I don't believe. I'm sorry.
No, I didn't want to cut you off, but I'll ask a couple questions. So, by the way, what is enough times to where you tried to call someone and they're not returning your call to where you cut them off and you touch?
I'll call it different times during the day, and I'll call 3 to 5 times. And if I call those 3 to 5 times and I'm able to leave a message and they never answer, most of the time I believe people know who's calling. They can see it on their caller ID. And if they aren't picking up and they won't call me back, usually after 3, but depends on the customer and whether quite honestly, the loan size. I may go to 5 or more, but for the most part, if I get to 3 calls and they aren't calling me back, I will set that aside. Now, if I slow down and I have time, I'll try them again, but if they're not going to be on the top of mind for me to get back with them right away, I'll just try later on. Usually, some of them go away, others end up getting back with me. It just sometimes takes them weeks before they get back, and then we move on from there.
Okay. And what CRM are you using?
I'm using what's beintouchmortgage.com, and okay. That's the system I use. It works phenomenally well for me.
Okay. Okay. So everybody, I hope some takeaways from what you've heard just now, and as I've asked this question of other folks, I always kind of come to the same conclusion. One is that they're very thoughtful about this concept of the WOW platform. They have a way in which they're methodically, from an organized perspective, have a first impression with a client. They're delivering a mortgage coach TCA, creating that WOW at the point of sale. They're ensuring they have some type of system. There's a lot of different CRMs and ways of organizing that, but they have a system and a method and quite often a technology that helps them follow up on their promises and commitments. And I don't think I've ever interviewed a elite salesperson that doesn't have WOW communication. They're very clear on their standards, how quickly they should get back to people. They're very consistent in executing that. When you heard Rick talk, and that's why I said I hope everybody goes back and listens to this, he believes that he delivers great advice, because, by the way, he does. Just by the fact that he's not doing a TCA with 1 out of 10 customers, how could you believe that you're the best loan officer if you're not delivering the best service that you know how to deliver? So he knows that he's executing on that personal standard. So he's got a lot of passion. By the way, a lot of expertise, because he's having that same conversation over and over and over. If he's closing 600 loans a year, that means he's having that conversation 1,000 times a year. That's how you become great and an expert. So just a tremendous amount of takeaways, and I know I didn't even hit them all, but I really urge anybody and everybody to re-listen to that segment. Rick, you answered that question 10 ways to Sunday, and you're taking it to a new level. Anything else you want to add before we move on in the conversation?
Well, I guess I would like to emphasize getting back quickly with customers. I know I kind of emphasized it before, but I think that's one of those things that's part of the WOW. But when you get back with somebody, if I get somebody who calls me and I can get back with them within 10 minutes, they're blown away. Most people don't. They'll say, I didn't expect you to call me till tomorrow, but I get back with them as quickly as I possibly can. And that does tend to wow them. Even if you have to leave a message, they're still wowed by that. I think to me, that's a critical piece for me, is to get back with that customer very, very quickly.
Fantastic. And I also want to remind everybody that if you're not using the alert feature in Edge, what a critical way, what a valuable way that is to make sure that you know if people are paying attention to your advice and to be there at the right time with your clients. So Rick, again, feel free to come back to that. This is a question that I like to ask people. I'm a big believer that everybody, is a little more artist or a little more scientist. They have a nature about them. And some people are more artists. It's more about emotion. It's more personality-driven. It's more heart-driven. And then there's some folks that they're more scientists. They're more technology, systems, processes. Now, I've also found that the best salespeople, they have the right balance. They're both, but they're naturally driven to one or the other. What are you? Do you think you're more of the artist type or more of the scientist type?
Oh, it's a no-brainer. I'm more of the scientist type.
And do you agree with the thought that the more balanced you become, the more successful you are? Is that a belief that you share?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm more of a scientist, but when you're selling, you have to be more of an artist. I mean, you have to have the science in the background. Okay, your basics. This is what I do. This is how I do it. This is how I explain it. This is what I'm going to go through. This is how I sell. But the art part of it is you have to listen to the customer and then respond based on what they're bringing up. with the basis of the science behind it, that you know what to say, how to say it, when to say it, but you communicate it to them, not like you're communicating it the 750th time in the last 3 weeks, but you're communicating it to them based on their information.
Right, right. No. And do you agree when you think of the other loan officers that you manage, and when you start thinking about them, some are more artists than scientists, some are more scientists than artists, and the ones that are not achieving their goals, it's because they're not balanced enough? I mean, do you see that as a leader and manager of other people?
Yeah, I would say that's very accurate.
Okay, cool. I'm trying to establish some thoughts around that, and part of my goal in these interviews is to really crack the code of the art and science of how the best win by exceeding expectations. So everybody, we are going to have time to open this up and ask some questions. So I'm not going to start doing that yet, but I see a lot of questions. I mean, more questions than I can even read and get to. So if you want to make sure you ask Rick a specific question, you're going to need to raise your hand. I'm not going to be able to, they're just questions are coming in too quick in the written part. So if you want to make sure you get a question answered, I am going to get to questions, but you're going to need to raise your hand to do it. So Rick, and by the way, Rick, we've already had 3 people raise their hands, so let's make sure we leave a few minutes at the end here. We've got about 10 minutes of conversation. I want to make sure everybody knows, again, I think you've described that you use Edge with 92% of your clients, as you put it, but let's walk them through a few case studies to make sure they really understand how you're using it. So I pulled up this PMI versus a second. If you could share the story, the backstory here, and how you use this to help yourself get more purchase business.
Well, this was one, I just pulled one I just done from a customer who called me. We don't have the ability to do a second mortgage over 80%. I do, but it's very difficult. So to make sure on a purchase, and this was a purchase that I can close on time, the best option I'm going to have is mortgage insurance and not do a second mortgage. I also personally believe that mortgage insurance is a better deal right now than second mortgages, and I believe that once they get to an 80% loan to value and they can drop the mortgage insurance, their rate is going to be better. So there's some reasons I believe that. And in this case, I put this together so that the customer could see the value of doing a PMI, because they called me and they wanted a 30-year fixed at 80% and a 10% second, which I have the ability to do, but it's very, very difficult. I wouldn't take it on because there's a very high likelihood I wouldn't be able to close a loan on time, and it's a purchase and it would need to close. So I needed to show them why the PMI is a better option. And you can see in the summary, even though my payment is a little bit more expensive, it's about, what, $130 more, $126 more. Over the long term, they save money because the mortgage insurance at some point is going to go away, and it's in the analysis going away. And so over the long term, they're going to save by refinancing or by purchasing and using the PMI. And that's what this is. That's what I'm going over in this analysis. Did that answer the question, Dave?
It did. Thank you. And you showed me another one. I just pulled that up. If you could kind of share the back story to this and how you use this.
Yeah, well, first you can see that if people seeing me isn't really probably helping me get loans, but I have a face for radio. But on this is a current customer, and it's a refi. This is one of the summaries. This is what I send when I'm trying to get the customer for a second or third or fourth or fifth time. It's my annual or semi-annual analysis, depending on when I send it. Most times it's a semi now. And I show their current mortgage, and I compare it with 3 to 4 options, depending on how much the shorter term, a 20 or a 15 year, is going to affect what I'm showing. And in this case, this is a current, they did a 30-year. They had 27 years and 7 months remaining, and I show 3 different options to show them how, by refinancing, how they can save a considerable amount of money over the long and short time period. And that's what this is showing. I like to compare where you see the same payment less term. So basically they're making the same payment, but they're shortening the term. I like to show them long-term savings in that area.
Wow. So everybody, I want to just make sure you've connected the dots. Here's a man that 92% of the time when he meets with a client, whether it's a purchase or a refi, he is having a mortgage coach conversation, he is delivering a video, then he's having annual reviews with all of his clients. So, folks, I mean, he's doing more than 1,000 TCAs a year, and that is fueling his success. It's fueling his belief systems, his confidence, his execution. I hope in this call, everybody that's listening to it, you're going to take this to a new level and you're going to recommit to making sure every one of your clients is getting this TCA with every client. I mean, it's just common sense, and it's a critical, wow, success habit. So I do think it's time to bring in some questions from outside. Again, I want to remind anybody, if you want to raise your hand where that number 1 is, click right there. I'm just going to start bringing in folks. You're only going to have a second, so if you don't speak up or if there's any background, I'm going to remute you and move on. But Tom Gross, I have unmuted you. Do you have a question, Tom?
Yes. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I put it in I wrote it out. Everything you advocate works, but how would you advocate incremental progress toward your accomplishments for someone who can't hire 2 assistants?
Without 2, you broke up a little bit. Without 2 assistants, is that what you said?
Yeah, so, yeah, Rick, let me let it out for you, because I hear this a lot. And by the way, Tom, we're getting feedback, so I'm going to remute you, so we're not getting that feedback. So this comes up a lot, Rick, and it's a great question, and it's someone who's not at the level where they can afford to hire an assistant. They hear someone like you that's super successful. If you could speak to, just put on your branch manager leadership hat, someone that's at that level that they can't afford their assistant, how do they get there? I think that's his question.
Okay. Yeah, well, first you have to realize I didn't start with 2 assistants. I started just on my own. So I worked a lot more. That's the first part. I was probably working 70 to 75 hours a week. But the first thing I felt like I had to do, and I think what somebody has to do, is they have to develop their process. Even having assistants will not help you if you don't have a process to teach them. So you have to have the process. This is that science piece. You have to know, here's what I'm going to do along the way so that you can build your business. And as I built it, I decided I'd add an assistant. So the first thing as soon as I could, I added an assistant. I probably added it earlier than most, but I see the benefit in having that. I'm willing to pay them because I believe I'll make more money, or I'll work less and make the same money. Either one works for me. So to me, I guess to do it, you have to start, in my opinion, you start with if you already have Edge and you have it, use it on every customer, do it yourself. That's something I would never give up. But as you build your business by using Edge and by doing the other processes you need to do to build your business, then you can add the assistants to help you out if that's the direction you want to go. Everybody's different. Some people just rather work a lot and not have assistants. That's up to you. But that's where I would start. One thing I would like to add in the Edge, at the end of the video, I always ask for referrals for both refinances and purchases. And that's also been a big boon and making people remember to send me referrals. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, I think so. And I guess just confirming, how many loans do you think an individual loan officer who's got a well-defined process, who's working, let's not say 70 hours a week, but 50 hours a week, how many units a month should someone be able to close without an assistant, in your opinion?
Well, I think, I did it, I was closing 30 to 35 by myself. So I would think, depending on what you have to do, I don't process my own loans. If you have to process your own loans, it's going to be less than that. But I would think 20 to 25 would be really not very difficult to do. If each loan took you an hour and a half, you're right at 40 hours. So you should be okay. I would think that would be possible.
Yeah, and by the way, I completely agree, and I'd go, I guess, not one step further, but to clarify that one step, there is no reason that a loan officer without an assistant can close over 8 to 10 loans a month. And anything north of that, you're making enough money to where hiring an assistant is not a problem. And if you're not closing that many loans a month, you have not figured out your process. You do not have a system and a process that delivers wow. So throwing more bodies at it isn't going to solve the problem. You need to make sure that you've got a wow platform, that you've got a system, that you've got a process that does that. And you should be able to do that by yourself. So if you're closing 4 or 5 loans, anything less than that, having an assistant is not the problem or the solution. All right, so we've got just a lot of people with their hands raised. I'm going to be as quick as I can, folks, flying through these. I'm not going to be able to spend as much time on all of them, but that one comes up so often. And by the way, I am bringing in Building Champions and Daniel Harkavy last Tuesday of this month just to talk about hiring and managing assistants. So don't miss that call. Tim Jones, you have been unmuted, Tim. Please speak up, and what's your question? Tim. All right. Sean, you have been unmuted. Sean, what is your question?
My question was, do you do any prospecting on your own, like for online leads, or is everything 100% referral for you, Rick?
I'm 100% referral with the exception I do radio. I've had a radio show and I do radio ads. I do that. It does bring in business, but it's fun. So I do it a lot of times just for the fun of it.
So folks, everybody, you know how passionate we are about radio. We have the Real Estate Radio Network. I'm a big believer in that strategy, and Rick is a testament to that, in the fact that the best way to be a leader and the best way to have confidence in yourself is to be able to teach and train others. So I'm sure that radio strategy is he's watching and getting news, then he's interpreting it, and he's sharing it. And his platform is a radio. So it's not only the business that you get from it, but just, you've got to keep your sword pretty sharp if you're gonna be sharing on a radio. So again, make sure you're getting content to the level where you can lead. You can do real estate meetings. You're bringing that back to your clients. Linda, you've been unmuted. Did you have a question or a comment? Linda. Okay, I'm going to fly quick. I can't wait for folks. Chris, you have been unmuted. Do you have a question or a comment?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Chris.
Oh, Rick had said that he does low-cost loans. What is the average cost that he's charging?
On a conventional refinance, our cost, we charge $330 total, and that includes the appraisal, the title work, and all bank fees.
Oh, wow.
On a FHA or VA, as long as the loan amount's high enough, I'll do that. I actually do those at zero closing costs, and we'll try to cover, because they're usually short of funds, I'll try to cover some of their prepaid items, if not all of their prepaid items also.
Okay.
And they'll take a higher rate because they're really after everybody's afraid of that higher rate. They think you have to be the best rate. You don't. You can do it with closing costs, and it'll set you, if nothing else, it'll make it between you and one other lender.
Perfect.
All right. Thanks, Chris. And again, I just want to emphasize, and it's such a theme when I talk to top producers, he's not selling rate. He's selling advice, total cost over time, fast path to debt freedom, service solution, and he's selling a wow experience. So if you do that, rate doesn't matter. You're not selling rates. Eric, I've unmuted you. Do you have a question or a comment, Eric?
Yeah, I appreciate it, Rick and Dave's terrific call, and it's one of my first ones, so I appreciate it. Rick, any chance you're willing to share a call that you use with all your calls?
A what that I use on all my calls?
I think you talked about a call sheet that you use for all your calls.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I would share that. It's pretty basic.
Yeah, so Rick, if you could forward that over to me, I will upload that with this call, and I'll also post a link on Facebook. So anybody that's on this call, please show how much you like this call by liking the post that we did for Rick, and I'll make that that call sheet public. And great question, Eric. And Rick, thanks for sharing.
You're welcome. The call sheet's pretty basic. I'm not a script person, so it's not a script. It's just a basic sheet, but I can share it.
Yeah, no problem. Mark, you have been unmuted. Did you have a question or a comment, Mark?
Yeah, my question is, when he does the TCA, what is Rick showing in regards to options? Is he just showing A, where they're going to do all the closing costs, B, where it's partial? You know, in other words, is he not showing an option where he's showing the lowest rate with the discount fee?
It would be a rare time I would show the lowest rate and they would pay the highest cost, because as soon as I do that, I'm like everybody else. So it would only be if they really basically force me to. Otherwise, I will never do that. I would always rather fight a little higher rate and explain why they should do that and not have the higher closing costs. And so I would never show, it would be a rare time I would show the lowest rate with the highest cost.
All right. Thank you. Martha, I have unmuted you. Did you have a question or a comment, Martha?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Martha.
Great. I had a quick question, and that is, when you have a referral, do you go back to that referrer with some sort of wow service?
I let them know that that the customer got a hold of me and that we're working with them, and I thank them for that. And that's pretty much it. I don't have any program in which to give them anything or do anything special. My feeling is, and maybe just because I'm cheap, my feeling is I gave them great service. I'm going to take care of their customer, and that's their friend or their family member, and I'm going to take care of them just like I did for them. And I think, to me, that's what it's about. And I never noticed when I did have programs that I got more referrals because I was doing something or giving something away. There probably is an option. I just don't know what it is, and I don't use it.
Great. Thank you.
Well,
Martha, great question. And I want to emphasize, folks, the most valuable thing you can do for someone is to deliver service that has obvious value. So you got to remember, every one of these people that are referring people to Rick, they got a obvious value. They got something more than a rate quote. They got something more than a transaction. Not only did they get that at the point of sale, but they're getting that on an annual basis. So to them, as they refer their friends to Rick, Rick's doing them a favor. He's helping their friends because he's delivering that service that has tangible and obvious value. So again, if you're quoting rates, taking apps, doing transactions, it's really hard to relate to what Rick is doing here and just how valuable it is. Mark Dankman. Mark, go ahead. Question?
Yes, hi. I really appreciate all the information you're sharing. I was just curious. I was going to ask about what marketing you do, but since you kind of already addressed that, I was just curious. What's your split between like purchase and refinance, and when the rates go up a little bit, how are you going to maintain the high levels of that?
Well, my split now is increased. I get a lot of repeat customers buying homes with me, and right now I'm probably about 60% purchase and about 40% refinance. I'm actually pushing refinance right now because I believe there's still a tremendous amount of people who need to refinance, and most of my competition is pushing purchases. So on the radio, I'm really pushing refinance before rates go up. And I still see a lot of people who have high rates that should refinance and are refinancing. But it's funny because I always hear people talk about you have to work with real estate agents, you have to get the purchases, and I know that's a critical piece for a lot of people. It is not for me, and as the market has changed, my strategy has worked exactly as I expected it to, and I get the call from the customer before they go buy a house, I pre-approve them, and I get the mortgage. And it's rare that an agent has a problem with that and tries to refer somebody else because they've heard of me and they heard me on the radio. And even though I've never talked to them, I get lots of customers come back and say, oh, yeah, my agent said you're phenomenal, that I should use you. So that's how I do it. It's worked perfectly for me.
Okay, thank you.
So guys, just breaking that down, amazing service, always a man of his word. He's out there as a leader in his local market. And again, he's got a realtor strategy. It's just not directly with realtors. So as we get closer to the top of the hour, and there are a few more questions I'm going to try to bring in, I just want to make sure I kind of wrap up and remind you all of two things. First and foremost, if you have not gone through the mobile experience, make sure you do. Rick, have you had a chance to go through and check out our mobile experience yet?
Yeah, I have. I have it on my phone. I've had several customers or many customers do the same thing. And they've uploaded it. They've loved it. So it's worked perfect.
Fantastic. I want to remind everybody of the different ways. I mean, first and foremost, it is the Borrower Conversation mobile. Secondly, I want to remind you when you are talking to a realtor, pull out your iPhone or your iPad. Don't just tell them that your service and advice is useful and valuable and unique. Show them how unique and valuable. When you're having conversations with family members and friends, make sure that you're not just telling, but you're showing. And last and certainly not least, now you have that TCA, it's mobile with you. So if you're out and about and you want to lock in a rate with a client or you want to talk to a client about it, it's on your iPad, it's on your iPhone. Use it, don't forget it. Again, I am going to ask if anybody has had some stories they want to share. Raise your hand. I've already got 4 people raising their hands. If anybody has a mobile story, I want to bring that into the community and start driving all the success we're having. I want to remind everybody, oh great, saw a number of people just raise their hands. I want to remind everybody that if you do not have your folders organized around, here are my purchase strategies, here are my refi strategies, and then here are my success stories, get that done. Don't wait. There's videos to do it. There's calls on Thursday. You know, we've got it for you. Don't forget to execute this strategy. It's huge. It'll save you a lot of time. I want to remind you to engage and interact on our Facebook page. We're going to be providing valuable content. In fact, we're going to have a follow-up item after this call with Rick's call sheet. I want to make sure, Rick, you know how grateful I am taking time to execute on this call. We've got about 3 minutes left. I'm going to bring in Jeff Nunley. Jeff, I saw that you raised your hand. You're a good friend. Jeff, I don't know if you have a question or a comment. You've got about a minute or two, and then I want to wrap it up with some parting thoughts from Rick.
Well, Dave, you'd asked about my mobile experience, and so I just wanted to address that really quick because I did have something just happen the other day where we've been chasing down a truck driver who needed to refinance, and every time he seemed to get to his computer to look at the presentation, he was too tired, it was too late, just a variety of things, and he was able to sit at a truck stop and pull up his iPhone, and within about 5 minutes of finishing the presentation, before I even had a chance to call him, because of course we have the tracking link on there, he called me up and we made a decision and got the paperwork going. So that's just one of many experiences, but it's just really telling that people need to receive information these days the way they get their information. And I think you do that just masterfully.
Right on. Well, hey, thank you for raising your hand, Jeff. Thanks for being such a quality Mortgage Coach member and always bringing great ideas back and great stories in. Appreciate that story. Jeff, let's keep in touch and let's talk soon. Rick, we've had over 60 questions submitted, so I have obviously not brought those in, and I still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people with their hands raised. But we are out of time, folks. I mean, Rick's been very generous with his time. I try to be respectful of everybody's calendar. We are at the top of the hour. I am going to post a poll. I want to know what you thought of today's call on a scale of great. How did we execute? Let us know. And Rick, any parting words of wisdom before we wrap up today's call?
I would just tell everybody, again, I don't do anything special. Everybody on this call can do the same thing. You may not be able to jump there tomorrow, but you can certainly build to get to where I am today. It's strictly a matter of, making your plan, executing your plan, and adjusting as you need to get to where you want to go. So I don't do anything special. You can do it. Just you have to actually do the things that will get you there.
Right on. Well, Rick, thanks so much for taking time to share, be so transparent. I'm looking forward to our next conversation. If you could send me a link or send me that actual call sheet so that I can share that with other members. And I look forward to having you as a guest in another coaching call, Rick. And if there's anything here at the Mortgage Coach team we can do to help you or your team. I want you to know that we're here to do that. If there's any managers on the call, we're doing a lot of sales meetings right now around how to create that culture of compliance, how to make the pivot to purchase business. So if you're on a leadership team and you want to have us come in and have a meeting with us where we show how we're delivering on that, just email me, dave@mortgagecoach.com. We're here to serve. We're here to help drive more value to everybody on this call. Rick, take care and have a great day.
All right, you too. Thanks a lot.